Everyone, as Justin said, thank you so much for joining. This is the first in a series of 4 different sessions in honor of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Everyone here at Command Link, we are super excited for this because first and foremost, we want to be educating the environment. We want to make sure that all of you, your partners, your customers, yourselves, you understand a lot of the threats that are coming into all environments. It's not just the enterprise, the mid-market, it's hitting everyone. My background, just for some of you, as Justin said, I'm leading all of the security practices here over at Command Link. My history, it dates me, but last 15 years, everything security, data governance, threat detection, email security, endpoint security, all the acronyms. If there is an acronym, it's come across my desk, I've seen it, I know what it is, or I've Googled it to understand what it is, like you guys. But coming over to Command Link, it was very unique for me because I never really thought about the network. I always understood network security. You have a firewall, you configure it, you leave it alone. You're just like, okay, it's working. That's not the way of the world anymore. Like everything else, you need to be constantly monitoring it for these threats. So, as we discussed this session, network detection and response, NDR, we want to help educate you around some of these potential threats that could be happening in the network and some of the ways that you can go ahead and defend against it and why. So, let's jump right in. And as Justin said, any questions, please put it in the chat. We are going to make this on demand available. So if there's any questions that we can't get to, we will be putting together an FAQ to share out later. So don't worry, if we don't address your question, we will get to it. But let's dive right in. So when we're talking about the modern threat landscape, I like this graphic because it gives some of the top attacks. And again, if you can't see it, we'll be sharing this out, so don't worry. But really what I want you guys to understand is that attacks come from everywhere now. All right, cloud tools, software as a service, remote work. As an IT provider, as a network admin, your employees aren't always accessing from that office anymore. Those 4 walls don't exist. Me right now, I'm doing this from an Airbnb. So our network admin is like, where is Joe connecting from? Our network admins need to understand that threats can come from anywhere now, right? 80 to 90% of this traffic is encrypted, which means it's not always easily accessible to be scanned while it's in motion. Attackers are using this and using the legitimate credentials to go ahead and spoof what normal behavioral patterns are. One of the themes of this is I want you to think about network similar to how you act on your computer. A lot of tools are looking for behavioral anomalies in how you're accessing files, what you're doing on your computer. It's the same concept when it comes to the network. How are you accessing these resources? Where are you accessing from? Right? These breaches can evade endpoint detection tools and traditional firewall rules. And this is what I really want you guys thinking about. We have to shift the attack strategy. All right. This is where you have to think a little bit differently. The attackers are going ahead and they're leveraging known credentials. They're not going ahead and a lot of people think, oh, they're hacking. They're brute forcing. They're getting credentials in easy ways. Then once inside, they're moving to different systems. They're moving to different servers, accessing different types of data. A lot of this is happening inside the network after it's already been encrypted, right? Cloud tools, we think that the cloud is protected because it's in the cloud, because it's one of these tools, it's Microsoft, it's Google, it's Amazon Web Services. We think that they're secure. But the problem is that you need to constantly update these API keys or security settings. And a lot of times our network admins, our cloud admins don't have time to do that. Very similar to if you guys remember server patching way back when, all right, I couldn't patch this server, so it's outdated. Similar things are happening with cloud technology, and it's leaving gaps where attackers are coming in. And this is where we're getting into, okay, why do the traditional tools that I have, the tools that I've had for the last 3, 4, 10 years, why are they not working? because they're not being updated properly. They're not being managed properly. Even when we're talking about patching firewalls or these endpoint tools, if we're not constantly staying on top of them, that's where these gaps start to grow to where, all right, it's a hole that now someone can get in. There are major blind spots in all networks if you're not doing this active monitoring. Now let's get into talking about, all right, what does network detection and response really do, right? And how does it detect these threats? So I wanted to be very simple here on this. So you got right in front of you, all right? It monitors, detects, analyzes, and correlates the information. What do I mean by that? All right, it's pulling all the information in from these networking tools, your firewalls, your switches, your SD-WAN. Then it's detecting any of those behavioral anomalies like we discussed. So if it sees anything deviating from what normal behavior is, it's going to throw up a flag. Then it's going to understand it by analyzing it. But the most important thing is that it's going to correlate the information together with other pieces from inside the network, your endpoint detection and response tools, your third-party tools. It's very, very crucial that you're putting all this information together to give you that picture. Once it has that, all right, it could go ahead to look at those threats and align them, excuse me, to that malicious activity. Do we know what that threat is? A great example. I hope we all know what ransomware is, or at least heard it. Ransomware is a category. Ransomware can act differently based on a number of different types of ransomware, a number of different ways that it can access. So just saying, oh, it's ransomware, that doesn't really mean anything. You need to actually map it to the activity that we're seeing or the markers that we're seeing so that we can act on it. And it's crucial to then send this to a SOC or an MSSP, anyone that can analyze this information and knows how to act on it. I like to be very, very straightforward. So, how does a modern attack happen? Yes, this is how it happens. All right. Stage one, someone sends you an email trying to fish for your credentials. Again, I hope we all have seen a phishing email, and some people have clicked on it, some people haven't. Those are the good ones. The others will teach you. But someone is going to try to spoof you to get your credentials. Now, these could be credentials to Microsoft, to Google, to a third-party tool. But typically, unfortunately, we're human. We like to use the same password. So attackers will then get that. And instead of trying to compromise that third-party tool, they're going to try to go at your VPN. And again, this information attackers can see by querying certain information from your devices. So they'd be able to understand what VPN, what firewall tools you're using. Once they're inside, right, they're able to bypass a lot of the internal tools. They're able to bypass endpoint detection and response, typical endpoint security, by leveraging tools like Linux, like Command Prompt, like Terminal, because you're able to access these resources without flagging anything, without sending any markers up. But if you have a network monitoring tool, it's going to see that traffic. It's going to see that activity. Think about it like a car driving. It's going to see that car on that lane where no car should be on. And this is where it's going to be able to detect that threat. What happens after we detect it, right? Again, looking back, thinking back to that earlier slide, we're going to understand what that movement is. We're going to now look at it and be like, okay, well, that device or that user shouldn't be accessing those resources. Bring it to the SOC. All right, the SOC is going to look at it and say, okay, that user never accesses that. The activity that they're also doing and what they're accessing is sensitive information, or what they're trying to do maps with this potential threat. And again, I want you guys to think about the power of coupling this with other engines that we're looking at information. All right. I've said endpoint detection tools can't detect some of this. That doesn't mean they're not detecting other potential threats. I don't want you to think that I'm throwing shade at other tools. All right. You need these tools together to help you with this picture. So when an endpoint detection tool is going to see potential ransomware or some malware on the device, that's going to give the SOC understanding of, all right, so maybe someone entered the network and now deployed that package, all right, to this device. Well, now we know where that activity came from, and we can plug that hole in the firewall. So I want you guys to think about kind of like the threat landscape and what it could be. Lockheed Martin has the term oh, now I'm blanking on it, but it's the way an attack happens, each stage in it. We want to understand that full stage, but you're only going to see that if you're looking at those different resources. And this is where coupling everything together is so important. This is where, again, you're building that strategy. All right. You're now looking at, all right, well, I have one tool, but that's only looking at one part of the network. Think about it like a Venn diagram, right? You have this covered, great, but I have a gap here and I have a gap here. Well, all right, now I want to go ahead and get a tool for this. So I'm going to get a SIM that's going to aggregate all this information together. Okay, great. That's looking at the third-party tools. Now I need something that's looking at network. I need a network tool that's going to look at that. All right, let's piece this all together. Now, in that very, very center that things are overlapping, that's where the SOC is going to sit to look at all this and understand it. Finally, kind of talking about command link. We're not going to give a huge plug on command link, but this is where we are going to be looking at a lot of this information. All right, because command link has built from the network side up, we have the SD-WAN and the SASE background. We have the SOC and the NOC tied together. And we want to be able to not only detect these threats, but also take action to remediate them. And this is where we're really struggling to inform you guys that we have this information and we have this Venn diagram for you. And that's something that I really want to help you guys to understand, that tools like this are out there. This strategy is achievable. With Command Link, we would love it if you come with us, but I want you guys to understand that this strategy is achievable at any level, not just from the enterprise that has these security teams, not just from the people that have budget to just get best of breeds, but anyone can and needs to adopt this strategy to not only cover the tools that are known, all right, your endpoint, your email, your Microsoft, your Google, but the network. You need to be actively monitoring that to understand those threats. Didn't want to kind of kill you guys on the first one, so we got about 15 minutes. We got some time, so I'd love to kind of take a look at. We could pop open, see if there are any questions. Let's take a look. Let's see, anything in the chat?
Not yet.
Not
feel
yet?
free to, yep, go ahead, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to add them to the chat.
Otherwise, we can get you out of here a little bit early. But like I said, really excited about this this series. It's all about education. It's helping you guys to understand what you need to really have that full blanket of security. So this week we're talking about the network. Next week we're going to be talking about devices and XDR. The week after that we're going to be talking about SASE, SD-WAN, and connectivity. And finally, we're going to tie everything together with managed detection and response, MDR, and looking at those third-party tools. And I really want you guys thinking as we build up through these weeks, how that strategy is going to come together. And I'm going to put together a very nice, clean kind of diagram for you guys at the end of the month for the MDR, showing how these really kind of protect everything.
I do have a few questions.
So Michael, competing NDR solutions. Honestly, a lot of the third-party tool and MDR vendors are now reaching to the network. So you can look into a lot of the tools, Command Link, eCentire, Sophos. A lot of these tools have NDR options. They're a little different because some of the vendors need to actually deploy something to these sites to pull the information in. But a lot of them are starting to understand that they do need to pull in from the network. It's just how they're doing it and how they're piecing all of that together. Robert, side-by-side comparison. Absolutely. We have a lot of this information that we can share with you guys. Michael, I love that. You are going to get this. You're going to get someone that's going to say, "Oh, I have endpoint detection. I have email security. I have a firewall. What else? What else do I need?" Well, I like to poke the bear. I always say, "Well, are you actively monitoring firewall logs?" And they'll say, "Well, what do you mean?" And I'll say, "Well, are you actively looking at that traffic to make sure that the configurations that you've made, and when did you set that firewall up?" "Oh, well, I set it up 3, 5 years ago." "Okay, have you made any changes to it?" "Oh, no, it's working." And I'll say, "But do you know that?" And this is the problem. If you're not actively monitoring that traffic, that activity, you hope it's working. And yeah, you haven't seen anything, but you could also ask, "Hey, I don't mean to pry, but have you had any breaches? Have you had any malware, any kind of people exposed?" They could say yes. And you could say, "Well, you don't know if that hasn't come from the firewall. You don't know if that's come from someone sitting at a Starbucks. That could be coming from your environment. And God knows what else has happened." So you need to kind of poke the bear a little bit and have the conversation around that ongoing maintenance of the firewall, because it's education for them. It's helping them to understand that there needs to be active review of this information. Is it poking the bear asking what to monitor from network traffic? No, because again, they need to understand that. They need to really know that that is an activity of their team or of a SOC. And that's absolutely fine. And this is where a lot of the infrastructure and security teams understand they don't have time to do all this. And that's why companies like Command Link, eCentire, anyone that has a managed service arm comes in to help them to manage that. There's an understanding in the security environment that these IT teams don't have the time, resources, or expertise to do this. It's no shade on the IT team. It's understanding that they need help. We all need help. And that's where we want to come in as that trusted advisor to say, "Hey, we understand this. We want to be able to help you. Let us help you." I'll take a sip because I've done this all with I've done this whole ramble. I'm going to take a sip of water real quick. And Raj, you're correct. EDR is endpoint detection and response. It wouldn't protect against an email phishing or spoofing. You would need to have some type of XDR that's going to have coverage over other areas, or an email phishing tool in and of itself.